Somebody say yeah. Say it again, say yeah. Somebody say yeah for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You look good out there, baby. I was born by the river in a little tent. Oh, just like the river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Look here. It's been too hard living, and I'm afraid to die. Look here. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long, I wish I could come out there where you are, baby. A long time coming, but I know, look at here, a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Look at here. Let me say one more thing. I go to the movie and I go downtown. But all I can hear is somebody keep telling me, oh boy, don't hang around. It's been a long. If anybody know what I'm talking about, let me see you wave your hand. I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. But I've got to take my time and say this, look. Then I go to my brother. Yes, sir. And I tell him, I said, brother, help me please. But he winds up knocking me. He knocks me back down on my. The big time that I thought. Somebody say yeah. I couldn't last long. No. I know I'm able. I'm able to carry on. It's been a long, good God Almighty, a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Look at here, one more time. Look. But then I go to my brother. Somebody take your hand back and forth like this. Everybody. You sitting in the first balcony too. Help me, please. All over the auditorium tonight. All over the. Hallelujah. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. That's the times what I thought I couldn't last for long. No, I know, baby.
yellow, black and white. We are perfect in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. That means He loves everyone on this earth, and He made us all equal.
Children are born to love, not hate, so why teach them to hate? Children are born to see people, not their color. We are just born different with the different pigments of our skin. So don't teach your children to be racist.
Looking for a personal injury attorney? Look no further than Columbia, Louisiana. W. Mark McKee specializes in personal injury cases. He is located at 7134 Highway 165 in Columbia, Louisiana. Tell Mark you heard it right here on the Smoking Glass Hour with Beer and Glass. You may also contact Mark at 318-649-2622. That number again, 318-649-2622. Contact him today. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Beer and Glass. We are honored to have you as a guest tonight and want to thank each of you for your faithful support. Without further delay, allow me to introduce to you Mr. Beer and Glass. Mr. Glass, take it away.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass on tonight's broadcast, Life and Legacy of Julian Bond. We're going to be talking about political activism, social activism, or whatever the case may be. Whatever type of activism or activist you'd like to discuss about, that's fine, but we're going to title it tonight, Life and Legacy of Julian Bond. We know that back in the 60s, 68 if I'm not mistaken, we lost Martin King. To be exact, we lost Martin Luther King to assassination. And then when we look, we lost Malcolm X. We lost Medgar Evers. We lost a whole lot of other people between the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000. And here we are, 2015. We lost one of the greatest of his time, Julian Bond. Now, I'd venture to say that there are a lot of people who have the slightest idea of who Julian Bond is, what he stood for, and what he represented. You see, because most of the time now, in 2015, we have people who are playing leading roles as actors, but they fall short of being an activist. See, because the definition or how we define an activist is this. An activist is a person who campaigns for some kind of social change. When you participate in a march protesting the closing of a neighborhood library, you, at that point, are considered an activist. Someone who's actively involved in a protest, excuse me, or a political or social cause protesting can also be called an activist. Excuse me. So when you look at the trend that's now going on, when you look at social media, because you get on there and you start talking about a certain issue, or you give your certain opinion, or you allow other people to give their opinion, you fall short of being an activist. Let's not get it twisted. If you are doing this broadcast, such as what I'm doing, if you are out there doing internet streaming, if you are out there on the radio, or you have a voice, and you are not actively seeking, actively involved in the trenches, you fall short of the term activist. You are playing a leading role in what we call trying to be an activist. So move over and allow those of us who are actually out there in the trenches. Well, Glass, what are you talking about? For 23 years, I've been in the trenches. I've been a drum major for justice. Not justice for just black people. Not justice for just white people. justice for all people. Well, what have you been participating in? Well, resumes speaks for themselves. And we're not on here tonight to talk about what I've done. We're on here tonight to talk about the life and legacy of Julian Bond and offer you some tips as to what you can do to become an activist. Because see, when you look around and you feel the absence of Martin King, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, then you forward on to Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. To me, there is a distinct difference between the first three and the latter two. The first three, I venture to say that when they left this earth, they left here just as much in debt as you and I are today. When you fast forward to the two cats that I just mentioned, I venture to say that they have made a lot of money by getting out there for causes that may or may not represent your concern. Now, again, let's not get it twisted. No one is trying to bring anybody down. Nobody is trying to out-talk anybody. I want to send a shout out to Mr. Brandon Johnson, who is an activist for the NAACP out of Longview, Texas. Brandon, you know what activism is all about. You know what an activist is all about. Why? Because you represent one of the oldest, if not the oldest organization, the National Association for Advancement of Colored People. But let's make sure we understand. Because it says for the advancement of colored people does not mean that it excludes any type of people, any color of people, any background of people. So here we are. Julian Bond was an icon of the civil rights movement. Now we know, and if you don't, I'm here to inform some and remind others that he died Saturday night in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, at the age of 75. Now, when you look around and you talk about 75, there are some people that's out there now who are 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and beyond, who have not taken 1 iota or 1 ounce of their strength to get out and fight for a cause, whether it's in their direct neighborhood, whether it's inside of their home, whether it's inside of their state, or more importantly, whether it's inside of these United States of America. You see, because when we look around, we understand that there is a cause, and this cause must be fought. And it can't be fought by those who don't have the strength and the endurance to toil on and to continue to go forward. So when we look at Mr. Julian Bond, this guy to me, and I have one of my good friends today, Sam Golden, one of the old-time guys back from the Reagan era and so forth, Nixon. Sam told me, say, Baron, you know what? Julian Bond was the modern day, in his time, Barack Obama. He was the smartest individual in the room. He always knew what he was talking about. And he was a great chess player when it came to social justice, or when it came to social justice. So here we are. Julian Bond, we know that he was a civil rights leader who had to go to the United States Supreme Court to be allowed to take his seat in the Georgia House of Representatives. Now, why did he have to go after being duly elected by his peers? Well, I'm going to leave that open for you so you can go out and do fact checking. Because here's the problem. We know, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe, Brandon, it's your state, the state of Texas, who is now changing up the way history should be taught. So if you have a voice such as I do on social media, on internet streaming, on Blog Talk, or whatever the case may be, wherever you have a voice, you need to make sure that history continues to be taught in the fashion in which it should be taught. Not some diluted part or aspect of history. not some distorted aspect of history, because what I have read in some of these books, we know that based on my 85-year-old mother, who has experienced some of the roughest things that have gone on within this country, we find out that history, according to the way it is in the books, are totally opposite of the way she experienced it. Well, when we look at the 2000 general election with President George Bush and President Al Gore, I specifically made my child, my 22-year-old child now, I specifically made her watch the television every night. Well, Glass, why did you make her watch the television? You want to know why? I'm glad you asked. I'll tell you why. Because I knew that this particular part of history would go down in the record books. It would be printed in fine print in history books. And I wanted to make sure that the history that she's seen on television was the true part of history and not what was written in the textbook. Because we know that the textbooks try to dilute the real truth and the real facts. And I'm talking about many aspects of history. Plainly put, Christopher Columbus, did he discover America? I'll leave that to you. Julian Bond, he was born on January the 14th of 1940 in Nashville, Tennessee. Julian became a civil rights activist while in college. So we know that he had to be either 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, or 20. Give or take a few years one side or the other. But we know that he had to be a young individual at that particular age. So if you are out there right now and you are just graduating from high school or you are just entering the 12th grade, you have the opportunity and the chance to become an activist. Now, does an activist wear the title of being a bad person? Well, if you look at it from a distorted standpoint, if you look at it from a standpoint of trying to divide and conquer, well, absolutely. That terminology and that term is going to follow you from the negative. But when you look at it from the positive, from the holistic approach, when you start to analyzing what goes on, well, I, for myself, not a bad person. I, for myself, don't speak for bad things. But what I do speak for is right. And sometimes telling people the right thing, you will be vilified, you will be hated, you will be maligned, and sometimes you will ultimately suffer. But when you look at the suffering aspects of doing the right thing, let's look at it from this standpoint. Look at Jesus Christ on the cross. He suffered more so than any other man in the entire history of this world. So if Jesus had to do it, guess what? We all will have to do it ourselves. Now, when we look at Julian Bond's life, in 1965, and I just told you in 1940, he was born. So 25 years later, he was elected to the Georgia State Legislature. I became an elected individual at the age of 23. The age does not matter. It's the wisdom that you have. It's the prayers that you have received. It's the prayers that you have prayed to get you from point A to point B. Now, when we look at Mr. Bond, when he was elected at the age of 25 to Georgia State Legislature, his oppositions to the war in Vietnam meant that he would have to take it to the United States Supreme Court to get a ruling for him to be allowed to take his seat. So when you compare what Mr. Bond did back then, and when you compare to what you may do today by speaking the truth, when you speak the truth, we have a facet of individuals, a facet of people, a facet of companies, a facet of businesses who would try to get your message from getting out and abroad. But guess what? That's why you have to be rooted not in the natural spirit, but in the spiritual aspect, the spiritual realm. You have to have a higher power. And for me, my higher power is capital G-O-D. Yes, again, I said it, capital G-O-D. OD. Well, are you boasting and bragging? No, I'm not. I am proud. I'm a proud individual to be able to say who it is that I worship and put out who it is that I worship. So when we look at Julian Bond, he later served as the head of the Southern Poverty Law Center and of the NAACP, which we have Mr. Brandon Johnson out there tonight, who serves as the president of the Longview chapter of the NAACP. Brandon, shouts out to you, hats off to you, salute to you, respect to you for being a drum major to justice. A drum major to justice, not an actor to people, not a sellout to the local store, but a drum major for justice. Now, we may not agree on everything, and we're not entitled to agree on everything. And the reason why I say that is this. You may take Interstate 20 to get to Texas, Dallas to be specific, Longview. I may take Highway 34 to 84, come through Toledo. The point I'm trying to make is that sometimes we can differ on how we get to the conclusion. The fact is that we're going toward the same conclusion, and hopefully we'll meet that mark. So we know that Julian Bond, he was elected at the age of 25. He was one of the most astonished guys out there during his time in the civil rights era. So his real name was Horace Julian Bond. And are you getting a history lesson tonight? You can look at it that way, but I'm not. I'm talking about the life and legacy of Julian Bond, the activist. Where are the true activists today in 2015? So when we look at history, I'm almost willing to bet if you bring your child in the room right now, or to that degree, some adults, if you allow them to listen to this broadcast and ask them, who is Julian Bond? I would guarantee you a dime a dozen that many people would not know who Julian Bond is, what he stood for, and his legacy. So once again, it is our job. It is our message. Our message here at the Smoking Glass Hour is clear. Our goal is to make a difference. And we make a difference by providing you factual information that can help you, the listener and or the voter, to go out tomorrow, the next day, and make a conscious decision about what is going on in today's society. Because, see, we always have, and we already have, convoluted information from Fox News, from MSNBC, from CNN, from NBC, ABC, CBS, whatever the case may be. Now, some do a better job than others. But see, here's the difference. We at the Smoking Glass Hour, we're not trying to be like nobody but ourselves. I make my own path from point A to point B. I don't follow unless it's necessary. I follow God. I follow my mother. I follow the teachings of my mother. I follow good people. Have I done wrong? Yes, but the issue tonight is not about doing right versus wrong. The issue is about you getting out, stepping up to the plate and becoming an activist. Because, see, we have lost Martin King. We have lost Medgar Evers. We have lost Malcolm X. We have lost Nelson Mandela. And now we have lost Julian Bond. So the question tonight is, what are you willing to do? Are you willing to stand up? Now, we know that Julian Bond, his family, they moved to Pennsylvania 5 years after 1940, where his father served as the first, guess what? The first African-American president of Lincoln University. In 1957, Bond enrolled at Atlanta's Morehouse College, where he helped found the Pegasus, Pegasus, a literary magazine, and interned at Time magazine. So this guy not only walked the walk, talked the talk, he walked the walk. When we look at Julian as a student, we'll find that this guy was very impressive. And if you look at Barack, if you look at Julian, there were a lot of similarities. So we know that Bond became a founding member of the Committee on Appeal for Human Rights. Here we are, once again, activism. He led a nonviolent student protest against segregation in the Atlanta parks, restaurants, and movie theaters. Now, when we look at what he did in Raleigh, North Carolina, he helped the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee in 1960, known as the SNCC. And that was in 1960. So that was 5 years prior to him going to college. The next year, before he left Morehouse College to serve as the SNCC's communications director, a position that he held for 5 years. Then he returned back to Morehouse decade 10 years later, or years later rather. Well, to be exact, let me go ahead and give you the facts of it. 10 years later, he received a degree in English. So when we look at the life don't just start at the end. It starts at the beginning. Because you remember, there were many people who laughed at this community activist who now serves as the president of these United States, Barack Hussein Obama. So when we look at community activism, when we look at social activism, when we look at an activist as a whole, would you rather have somebody represent you as an activist or somebody who's coming from the business industry, the white collar, the blue collar? The point I'm trying to make is this. Being an activist, you have to be charged to do this. You have to be commissioned to do this. You have to be commissioned to tell the truth, even when the truth applies to you, Glass, even when the truth applies to you, Brandon, even when the truth applies to you who may be listening. And guess what? We have listeners from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We have listeners in Lafayette, Louisiana, Breaux Bridge, St. Martinville, Opelousas, Ville Platte, Lake Charles, coming on north. We have them in Montgomery, Louisiana, Pineville, Alexandria, Rayville, Louisiana, Winfield, Louisiana, Montgomery. As I said, Larry Bell that's out there, one of the all-time favorite listeners that's out there. Then you move on forward. We have them in Columbia, Louisiana. We have them in Catahoula Parish over in Jonesville, Louisiana. We have them in Jackson Parish, which is Jonesboro. We have them in Ruston, which is Lincoln Parish. We have them in Rayville, which is Richland, Winsboro, which is Franklin. You're going over to Bossier City, Stonewall, Shreveport, and you look across, you look at Delhi, which is Richland Parish. Then you branch on out. We are carried by Jam Vibes Radio out of South Carolina. We're carried by Real Life Broadcast. Why? Because the content that we're talking about resonates with people. So what I'm saying is this: we all should be able to join together by telling a neighbor, tell a friend that we are on the move in 2015. We're talking about these issues that affect our people. These issues that affect our people known as the country, the United States of these America. So when we look at Julian Bond, we know that, once again, in 1965, he served in the Georgia House of Representatives. But however, he didn't just serve. He had to go to the United States Supreme Court just to get a ruling to prepare him to sit on the seat. So when you look at the struggle that we go through today, yes, there are some similarities. It comes in a different fashion. But when you look back to those guys who came before us, yes, indeed, they had to go through things that we never will have to go through. Why? Because the time zone are different. Everything is different. So when we look at Julian Bond, we know that he served in the Georgia House until 1975. And then he went on to serve in the Georgia State Senate from 1975 to 1986. Now, think about this. During his tenure in the state legislature, Julian Bond wrote over 60 bills that were ratified as law. Now, when you look at some of the other people that are out there, when you look at some of the other people like Aaron Hopkins, who is out there, Aaron is one of those other guys. Okay, we have listeners out there in Monticello, Arkansas. They're messaging me now. And sorry if I forget that you're out there. Charge it to my head and not my heart. But please let me know, because I'd like to let the listeners know that we are not just here talking by ourselves. We have people that are out there listening. Also want to thank W. Mark McKee. So if you're looking for a personal injury attorney, check out Mark McKee, located right off of Highway 165 in Columbia, Louisiana. So when we look at Facebook, when we look at Instagram, just because you post a saying or a post, you don't qualify as being an activist. Get out there in the trenches like Brandon Johnson. Get out there in the trenches like Aaron Hopkins. Get out there in the trenches. Let your voice be heard. Let your presence be known. I venture to say that 99% of the people that you know, they have never visited a school board meeting, even when it involved what might affect their child's day-to-day life at school. I venture to say that most people have never went to a police jury meeting. Why? Because I see it month to month. I see people on Facebook complaining. I see people on Facebook always talking about what they would do. But when you give them an invite to come on the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass, you get them to come on the Brandon Johnson Show, Real Life with Broadcast with A.F. Riggins, guarantee you, most of them will find 99 excuses and got 99 problems. And coming on the radio ain't one of them. So when we look at being an activist, you just can't qualify appoint yourself as an activist. You can, but you miss the mark. We know that 60 bills that were ratified into law, that means that he wrote 60 bills, and as a result of those 60 bills, guess what? In the Georgia State House, they are now laws that were written by Julian Bond. Now, check the facts. Go and look at many other people who have served in the state legislature or the United States Congress or United States Senate. See how many bills that they may have written that were ultimately ratified and became law. So when you look at the legacy of Julian Bond, this guy, like I said, just didn't talk the talk. He walked the walk. So when we look at Julian Bond in 1986, guess what? Julian Bond had enough courage to enter the Democratic primary to run for the United States House of Representatives in the state of Georgia. But guess what happened? Guess what happened? He lost the heavily contested race to one of our great pioneers that is out there right now, John Lewis, another civil rights leader and former SNCC member. SNCC member. So we know that people have tried. We know that people want to do. We know that some people act like they want to do. But at the end of the day, when the smoke clear and the dust settle, you have the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So the question that I'm asking, Aaron Hopkins, since you're out there representing Dallas, Texas, Brandon Johnson, you're out there representing Longview, Texas. Tell me, what is it that we need to do to motivate people to get involved, to help us spread this message? And I'm talking about the message of unity. I'm talking about this message of the rainbow. I'm not talking about all this separate but equal. I'm talking about the truth, acknowledging the truth, repenting, and trying to move on. So guess what? Here we are. My two little nieces out there from Monticello, Arkansas, they're out there hopefully listening live. And the reason why is because they want to make a difference. And guess what? They are Anglo-Saxon. They look nothing like me. But you know what? Their heart is in the right place. At a 9th grader, 8th grader, 7th grader, 6th grader, their heart is in the right place. So what I'm going to do right now is fall right in sync. I'm going to play you just a little sounds of Mr. Eric Clapton, Change the World. It'll be about 3 minutes and 54 seconds. Don't go away, because I'll be right back.
If I can reach the stars, pull one down for you, shining on my heart so you could see the truth. And this love I have inside is everything it seems. But for now I find it's only in my dreams that I can change the world. I'll be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good. Baby, if I could change the world. If I could be king, even for a day, I'd take you as my queen. I'd have no other way. And our love will rule in this kingdom we have made. Till then I'd be a fool, wishing for the day that I can change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good. Baby, if I could change the world. Baby, if I could change the world. I could change the world. I would be the sunlight in your universe. You would think my love was really something good. Baby, if I could change the world. Baby, if I could change the world. Baby, if I could change the world.
We are back broadcasting live with the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. But before we go in, I want you to listen to some sounds of Mr. Mark McKee.
Looking for a personal injury attorney? Look no further than Columbia, Louisiana. W. Mark McKee specializes in personal injury cases. He is located at 7134 Highway 165 in Columbia, Louisiana. Tell Mark you heard it right here on the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. You may also contact Mark at 318-649-2622. That number again, 318-649-2622. Contact him today.
You know, a lot of people talk the talk without walking the walk. At the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass, we make an attempt daily to make a difference in the lives of others. Our broadcasts are to inform some and remind others about things going on in this world. The topic may be uncomfortable to you, but if you don't talk about it, how can we move forward? Why don't you join us each and every day right here on Spreaker.com or thesmokingglasshour.com. Let your voice be heard. We are on the move in 2015. And by the way, don't forget to like and follow us on Spreaker.com. Back live to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass tonight, Life and Legacy of Julian Bond. We're talking about being an activist. We're talking about the life of Julian Bond. We know that Julian had a stalwart career. When we look at him from 1971 to 1979, Julian served as the president of the Southern Poverty Law Center, an organization, guess what, he helped co-found it. So when you look at history, when you look at legacies, look at what was and look at what is based on the actions of the person. He was the president of the Atlanta's chapter of the NAACP before becoming the chairman of the national order of the NAACP. Guess what? A position he held from 1998 until 2010. He became the chairman, of the NAACP and the president of the Southern Law Poverty Center. Bond continued on to be a prominent voice in the media as well. He was a commentator for the NBC's Today Show. He wrote a national newspaper column and produced poems that have appeared in publications such as The Nation and the New York Times. He was also a professor of history at the University of Virginia and an adjunct professor at American University. We know that once again Julian lost his life on August the 15th of 2015. He was 75 years old. Now, the Southern Poverty Law Center co-founder Morris Dees said this, and he said it best. With Julian's passing, the country has lost one of its most passionate and eloquent voices for the cause of justice. He advocated not just for African Americans, but for every group, indeed every person subject to oppression and discrimination, because he recognized the common humanity in all of us. Now, that is exactly who I am. That is exactly who Brandon Johnson is. That is exactly who A.F. Riggins is, Aaron Hopkins, and a many other group of people that are out there. We recognize that some people are subject to oppression and discrimination. And because of that, we defend those individuals, not because of color, but because of the actions that they have to go through just to sit at the table, just to be decent and in order. So when you talk about activism, we know that you have to be active. You can't be an actor being active. You have to be rooted. Now, let's look for those who may want to become an activist. Let's kind of talk just a little bit about some attributes. One of the attributes that I think, or one of the qualifications that I think. Now, Brandon, Aaron, if you out there and anybody else is out there, you can go in the live chat room. You can chat with me live. You can send me some of your attributes, some of your qualifications. Guess what? I will read them. And I failed to tell you that not only are we Jam Vibe Radio out of Columbia, South Carolina. Shout out to Linton Smith. We're looking at Baltimore, Maryland. We're looking at Atlanta, Georgia. We're looking at Jamestown, Kentucky. We're looking at Arizona. We're looking at Television City in Hollywood, Douglas Robinson, who's out there listening. We're looking at San Diego, California. We're looking at Columbus, Georgia. We're looking at the state of Texas. We're looking at the state of Mississippi. We're looking at Alabama. We're looking all across for people who are willing to just do one simple thing, make a difference, stand up. We're even looking at Boston, Massachusetts, with Ann Friedman, who is out there, who is one of the I can't describe Ann enough. She's always active, and she's always involved, and she's always honest with her assessment, be that racism, be that police brutality, be that politics, or whatever the case may be. Now, one of the qualifications, I think, is the ability to initiate and coordinate creative campaigns, issue-oriented campaigning, and organizing experience preferred. Now, if you look at today, you need to have some internet organization and you need to have some new media experiences, which will always be a plus. Why? Because social media can drive traffic as fast as you can drive from point A to point B. How do I know that? Because I had to be taught this 2 years ago when I had no earthly idea that you can click a button and your message can go all across the world in a millisecond. Now, you should also have strong writing or communication, internet and analytic skills, graphic ability is a plus. That's why we have Miss Nina LaSalle out of St. Martinville, who makes all of the Smoking Glass Hour. Well, not all of them, but the majority of them, because we have other people that are behind the scenes making images and things of that nature. If you look at the image for tonight, that had to be recreated to do what we needed to have done, which is in the advertising aspect of it. So when you look at the Smoking Glass Hour, it's not just me doing what I'm doing. I get no credit. I want no. We have to look at all of those people behind the scene. Now, you have to be a self-starter. You have to have the ability to work effectively with minimal supervision, but understanding of when to ask questions and seek guidance. That's what worries me the most about some. You can give them a mile, and they will go 2 miles without trying to find out what they need to do within point 8 to the mile. So you have to be rooted. You have to have some wisdom. You have to have some knowledge. You have to have some understanding of the subject matter. You just can't get out and start talking. You can't send a mechanic to fix on a car, or a person acting as a mechanic to fix on a car. You know why? Because the very moment he lets up that hood and you ask him, is the problem gas or fire? He's not going to know either one. And nowadays, it may not be either. It may be the technology. It may be the computer. My point is this. You have to know who you're following. You have to know who you want to lead. Now, fundamental understanding of the community, the people, and the events going on in that area qualifies you to have a good outlook on community activism. When we look at the ability that you have to work with executive directors, not just locally, but abroad. How about boards of directors, staffs of the board of directors, grassroots activists, and people from many different backgrounds, and guess what? Many different countries. Because when you look out there, there are people from other countries who adapt to the message that you're talking about. And guess what? You have to be able to communicate with them in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Thanks, Ann Freeman. She just messaged out there on the photo. See, these people are going on all the time. So when you tell a neighbor, tell a friend that we're on the move in 2015, our message becomes clear that the number one goal is to simply make a difference. Dr. Broder, who's out there from the Bay Area, comes on and talks about different ideas. So when you look at Dr. Salisbury, Dr. Savage, when you look at Dr. Riley Bratton from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, these people are involved. They are individuals who provide conscious information, fact check for us, and do a lot of good for the message that we're trying to get out. When you look at the experience with word processing, the database, the spreadsheet and internet software, web development skills, and new media interests, and like I said, experience is a plus. Enthusiastic personality, effective team player with a demonstrated commitment to grassroots movement, interest in numerous subject matters, local, state, and on a national issue. Here's why. Because all politics is local. And if you don't get involved in your local election, 9 times out of 10, you won't get involved in your state or your national level. That's why every Thursday night we dedicate to local and state politics. And guess what? Each and every night we might be donating sometime to maybe education. Monday nights is local, state, well, state and national. Thursday night is local and state. Some other night might be education. Some other night might be what. The point I'm trying to make is this, is that any subject matter that's out there, we have allowed ourselves to be capable to have talking points regarding it. When you look at the presidential election that's coming up, we know about Donald Trump. We know about Ben Carson. We know about Hillary Clinton. We know about Bernie Sanders. Feel the burn. Hillary. We know about all of those individuals. Not just those, but we can go on and on and on. My point is this. We're not trying to sway you to go one way or the other. We're trying to get you involved so you can go one way or the other on your own free will and accord. When we look at the ability to travel, to participate in meetings, Brandon Johnson can tell you about that, conferences and other forums to initiate events, even when they are not desired, but you have to be willing to do that. So here we are. We want to make sure that we don't have to ask the question that Marvin Gaye asked, what's going on? I led you right into it. We're going to listen to some sounds about 3 minutes and 52 seconds. Brother Marvin Gaye, what's going on?
What's up now? Brother, what's up? This is a groovy party, man. I can dig it. Stop. Right on. Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some loving here today. Yeah. Father, we don't need to escalate. You see, war is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Oh, picket lines and picket signs don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see what's going on. What's going on? Yeah, what's going on? Oh, what's going on? Right now. Right on. Right. Everybody thinks we're wrong. Oh, but who are they to judge us? Simply cause our hair is long. Oh, you know we've got to find. Bring some understanding here today. Picket lines and picket signs don't punish me with brutality. Come on, talk to me. You can see what's going on. Yeah, what's going on? Tell me what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on. Right on. Right on. Right on. Right on.
Looking for a personal injury attorney? Look no further than Columbia, Louisiana. W. Mark McKee specializes in personal injury cases. He is located at 7134 Highway 165 in Columbia, Louisiana. Tell Mark you heard it right here on the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. You may also contact Mark at 318-649-2622. That number again, 318-649-2622. Contact him today.
We are back broadcasting live with the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. During the break, we got a message on activists from Mr. Aaron Hopkins. And Aaron says this, and I'll read. And I think it's very profound. And Aaron, you basically explains why I am kind of leaning away from former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to be the commander-in-chief. Aaron says this: the main attribute of an activist as it relates to justice in this country is the ability to move against the grain of popular opinion into the realm of opposition by the forces and power that absolutely crush and oppresses humanity, aka fearlessness. Now, Mr. Hobson, let me ask you this. If you are part of the establishment and you are born a part of the establishment and you become the president of these United States, how can you go against the grain? How can you go against the circle in which you come from? It is absolutely impossible, because Barack Hussein Obama went to Washington, D.C. with hopes and aspiration to do exactly what you just said. And it never happened. So when you look at leadership, when you look at activism, when you look at an activist, the question is, how can you go against the grain? Are you already too deeply in debt with those who you're trying to go against? Because if you are, you're failing from the outset. You're failing from the outset. Brandon says, and Brandon, you are in the same boat that I am. In South Carolina, I believe, Brandon says, I haven't forgotten what the Clintons said about President Obama. So when you look at the whole picture, I'm not telling anybody to vote for or against. I'm just providing a different perspective. Sam Golden and I talk about this all the time. Sam, I'm not going against what you're saying about Secretary Clinton. She has a solid career. Support her in almost everything that she has done. Okay, but when I became a member of the Masonic order, there were some of my friends who I knew did not deserve to be a part of that organization. Why? Because the attributes that they needed according to the creed itself, they fell short. So when we look at being an activist, when you look at being in the trenches, you have to be rooted. Now, the person should be, and I believe Brandon and Aaron and anybody else, you guys would probably agree with this, and if not, you feel free to message you on. The person should be outgoing. The person should be friendly, but not afraid. The person should be non-argumentative, but not afraid to argue his or her facts. The person should be a team player, definitely a team player. The person should be a team leader. The person should be enthusiastic. The person should be very, very poised, presentable, socially adept, and self-directed. Now, the person should have community organization skills, the ability to work cooperatively with diverse groups of people, the ability to speak before groups, the ability to build permanent grassroots constituencies in your local area, your state area, and your national area. They must, Brandon, Aaron, they must have courage. They must have love for people. People that they have never come in contact with. You may be in Boston, Massachusetts. You may have an issue going on in Longview, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Louisiana. You have no idea who those people are, but you got to love people in order to go to people. Dr. Cornel West told me, say, young brother, in order to move forward, sometimes you have to step. You have to step in the name of love. You have to step sometime as if nobody's looking, or if you can't be afraid to step. And when you're stepping, sometimes you have to step and ultimately take the ultimate sacrifice, which may lead to loss of life. And hopefully that won't happen. But when we look at the ability to work cooperatively with diverse groups, when we look at the ability to speak before groups, when we look at the ability to build permanent grassroots constituencies in your local area, if you look at Brandon Johnson's Facebook page, if you look at Aaron Hopkins' Facebook page, if you look at the Smoking Glass Hour Facebook page, most of the time it's not what people want to hear. It's not what people want to see. But guess what? It's what they need to see, because the Bible tells you they didn't hearken to me. You tell them anyway. It simply means they didn't listen to me. They didn't listen to the truth. But guess what? You are commissioned to tell the truth. You have a truth to tell the truth. Again, even when that truth applies back to self. So when we look at Julian Bond, the life and the legacy of this guy, when we look at the life and legacy of yourself, when you look at the life and legacy of the listener that's out, the question is this: what mark did I make from the time I was born to the time I took my last breath? What mark did I make when I seen a man out there struggling? When I seen a veteran being homeless? When I seen a person who went to college and had a PhD, known as a doctor, but they fell short? Somehow they met a struggle. Did I reach down and try to pick them up? Or did I step on them while they was down? Did I play or hate? Did I have identity crisis? Did I not want my neighbor to step up and rise beyond me? Because see, my message is clear. The ladder has 10 steps. Even if I don't get to but number 5, my goal is to try to take somebody else higher than what I went. My 22-year-old, I try my best to instill in her that your job is to try to help somebody. And when you're helping somebody, the good Lord will bless you somewhere down the road. Brandon Johnson, I know that you hear me tonight. Aaron Hopkins, I know that you hear me. Larry Bell, I know that you hear me. Corey Jackson, I know. A.F. Riggins, I know that you hear me tonight. Wendell Thomas, I know that you listen to me. So the question remains, what is it that we are willing to do to make life better? The millennials, the young generation, they have absolutely no idea. I was in a place the other night, Brenda. I asked this young cat, and me and my buddy, I specifically asked him because I knew he was not going to know that. I said, hey, man, did you check out NWA? He said, well, who is NWA? I say, see, I knew you weren't going to know it. So I told him about it. He said, man, I got to go see it. I said, you got to understand where you're going. You got to understand where you came from before you can understand where you go. Yes, Brandon, I love NWA. I love that they were able to tell me what the streets was like, because I didn't know anything about it from this little old country town. I had absolutely no idea about L.A., Compton, California. I had gone to San Diego to visit my son, but I had no idea about Houston, the Fifth Ward. I had no idea about Chicago, the West Side. I had no idea other than hearing it through other people. But when I was able to see it from a visual standpoint, that is when I say, oh no, I've heard my mother talk enough about it. I have heard her talk about how she had to do this. She had to do that. At the end of the day, when the smoke cleared and the dust settled, I made up my mind. God gave me a tongue. He gave me a mouth. He gave me a brain. It was my job to use it. Just because Brandon Johnson decides to use his voice in a different way, don't play or hate on Brandon, because his gift is being in the NAACP, and your gift may be down in the trenches. Your gift may be behind the scene, but your gift from God is not sitting in your lazy boy chair. The gift from God is not sitting there talking idle. Your gift from God is not having a child and not raising. Because see, we are falling short of raising kids. I did a show the other night about grandparents raising grandchildren. There's absolutely no reason why a 79-year-old lady should be raising a 17-year-old child. Somebody help me. It just don't make sense. The question is this: what are we willing to do to try to make a difference? What are we willing to do to try to make a wrong a right? See, you have to acknowledge, you have to accept, then you have to repent, and then you have to try to move on. You can't hold on. And see, people fail to understand because Brandon Johnson, because Aaron Hopkins, because Corey Jackson, because A.F. Riggins, because Wendell Thomas, because Wendell Fagan, because many other people talk about things that went on in the 60s, it does not mean that we're holding on. It does not mean that we have not moved beyond. But we have to inform some and remind others that in order to move forward, we have to acknowledge what went on prior to our coming. Our suffering here has been long. Our suffering has not changed. Other people's suffering have not changed. But it's not for me to tell you about what goes on in Sally's house. It's for me to tell you what's going on in my house. My house is the community. My house is the black community. My house is these United States of America. And that includes all people. So here we are. We're talking about Julian Bond, the life and the legacy. We're talking about you becoming an activist in 2015. We're talking about you participating in the Brandon Johnson show. We're talking about you dialoguing with Mr. Aaron Hopkins on his Facebook page. We're talking about you joining Real People, Real Life, Real Life with Pastor A.F. Riggins, senior pastor, founder, Real Life Church out of Houston, Texas. We're talking about you creating your own format and perhaps coming on the Smoking Glass Hour and doing your own thing. We're talking about you not sitting idle. We're talking about you not sitting in a lazy boy chair. We're talking about you getting out and motivating. We're talking about you going to a school board meeting. We're talking about you going to a police jury meeting. We're talking about you getting registered to vote and going to vote. We're talking about you possibly considering joining your local chapter of the NAACP, and that includes all people. That includes all people. Let me make sure I say it again. That includes all people. And Mr. Brandon Johnson, if you're out there listening, I will ask that you message me and tell me if I'm providing correct information about the NAACP or inadequate information. They accept all people. All means all. So here we are. We're looking at about 8:35 p.m. Central Standard Time. You're listening to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. We're talking about the life and legacy of Julian Bond. We're talking about you becoming an activist. We're talking about you getting involved. We're talking about you doing something different than what you have done in the past. We're going to pause for a brief moment and we'll be right back.
If you are looking for some good music to listen to while on the job, while driving, or simply want to relax, move on over to thesmokingglasshour.com and scroll to the bottom of the page. Press play, or you can download the TuneIn app on your smartphone and search for WMAD 24-Hour Global Radio. Give us a chance to massage those ears with some good sultry sounds with music for adults and lovers. You are now listening to WMAD 24-Hour Global Radio.
Red and yellow, black and white, we are perfect in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. That means He loves everyone on this earth, and He made us all equal.
Children are born to love, not hate, so why teach them to hate? Children are born to see people, not their color. We are just born different with the different pigments of our skin. So don't teach your children to be racist.
Excuse me, ma'am. Would you like to have my seat?
R-E-S-P-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-C-T.
A message from the Foundation for a Better Life.
We are back broadcasting live with the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. Tonight we're talking about the life and legacy of Mr. Julian Bond, one of the pioneers in the civil rights era. We're talking about being an activist in 2015. Just before we came back from the break, you heard the little commercial. Jesus loved the little children. That commercial is done by the two little nieces out of Monticello, Arkansas, who looks absolutely nothing like I do. Those little kids have a heart. Those little kids are involved. They made their own commercial with their own words. So we have no problem allowing any child that's out there who is making a difference in their community. We have no problem profiling that child. We have no problem bringing that child on. We have no problem letting that child call in and talk live with the Smoking Glass Hour and tell us specifically what it is that they may be doing. So Lou and Mo, I know that school is about to start if it hadn't already started. I want to say thanks from the bottom of old Uncle Barron's heart that you guys took the time to do your own individual commercial. And guess what? Uncle Barron needs another one. So while you're sitting there listening, with your grandmother, I know Lulu is just sitting there just smiling, shaking her head and rolling her eyes like, what is that he's doing? But guess what? I'm not afraid to tell you guys that I love you, not just because of what you have done, but because of who you are and what you stand for in the heart that I have seen from you guys. So tell a neighbor, tell a friend that you have done something for the Smoking Glass Hour live broadcast on WMAD, which we're working on. So make sure that you tell a neighbor, tell a friend that we are on the move in 2015. So please tell a neighbor to continue to listen in, to continue to listen in to the Brandon Johnson Show, to continue to listen in to the Real People, Real Life, Pastor A.F. Riggins Show. We're trying to make sure that everybody who is out there that have a voice, that they are heard loud and clear. But just make sure you understand that because your voice is being heard does not qualify you to be an activist. Because you are acting on behalf of an activist does not qualify you to be an activist. Get out there in the trenches. Get out there from amongst the four walls and the confines. Get out there and support an issue. Get out there and fight for a cause. Get out there and rally the troops. And at the end of the day, when the smoke clear and the dust settle, you can say that you have become a part of the movement. The movement to become mobile. The movement to become involved. The movement to show action rather than words, because ways and action speaks louder than words. So we want to make sure that tomorrow night you tune in to Pastor A.F. Riggins, senior pastor founder, Real Life Church out of Houston, Texas. Want to make sure that you support Pastor Riggins and his ministry. Want to make sure that you support anybody else that's out there who is doing things from the bottom of their heart and not about numbers, but about moving from point A to point B, because numbers will only get you so far. Numbers will only get you so far. Ways in action will take you to the promised land. And the promised land is this, is that when you go to bed at night, you can feel content. When you wake up in the morning, you can pick up where you left off. So before we go, we want to once again thank W. Mark McKee, personal injury attorney, along with Miss Gladys Knights and the Pips. Neither one of us want to be the first to say goodbye.
Looking for a personal injury attorney? Look no further than Columbia, Louisiana. W. Mark McKee specializes in personal injury cases. He is located at 7134 Highway 165 in Columbia, Louisiana. Tell Mark you heard it right here on the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass. You may also contact Mark at 318-649-2622. That number again, 318-649-2622. Contact him today.
Before we conclude, we know that a lot of things are going on in this country. We know that there's room for all of us to take a proactive approach. We know that some would do it one way and some would do it another way. But let's try to have a little respect and civility for our fellow man. You have been listening to the Smoking Glass Hour with Baron Glass and the life and legacy of Julian Bond, becoming an activist in 2015. Neither one of us wants to be the first to say goodbye. Good night, everybody. Gladys Knights and the Pips.